This is a dedicated video sponsored by ThreatLocker. Sections with ThreatLocker will be timestamped in the description below to highlight my thoughts. Zero trust has been perhaps one of the biggest buzzwords in hype of the security industry over the last decade. It's taken things by storm. Most every product, tool, solution pitch has some idea of zero trust sales. Now, there are a lot of myths permeating the world and idea of zero trust, a primary one being that it's literally one solution. Never mind that. It's actually really an approach, a framework, an ever-evolving strategy to the world of security. So allow me to showcase the underlying concepts or framework behind zero trust, as there is a lot of myths, and I'm attempting to debunk them. Now, using today's sponsor, ThreatLocker, I want to show you the underlying concepts. I understand it's a bit ironic to showcase the myths of zero trust, being that one is literally that it's a one product. It's not one product. What I'm attempting to do here is just showcase the underlying concepts or approach rather than just abstract theories on PowerPoint. PowerPoint. ThreatLocker is the interface for this implementation of these concepts, but really just think of this as the underlying concepts, if that makes sense. One of the primary misconceptions of zero trust is that this whole idea of next-gen tooling, like marketing saying, yo, buy my next-gen tool trust. Really, it's these marketing tools presented as zero trust enabled. And really, zero trust is not about a tool. It's a framework, a strategy. Therefore, you don't have to rip and replace your entire networking stack with zero trust enabled platforms. And you don't have to restrict what applications users are using for their common business intelligence or business needs. Really, zero trust is about the enablement of applications while being mindful of the threats that permeate, maybe spoof, or act as a conduit for an attack space or attack vector within the application space. This is where a core principle, allowlisting or whitelisting as it's known, comes in. Allowlisting literally is just a list of legitimate applications while blacklisting the rest of applications. Allow lists in the context of host-based security can be very large, but also realistically, how many applications are users using on a weekly or daily basis? I don't know, maybe 10. So what's nice about allow lists is that they take a look at the application signature. If it doesn't match the legitimate one, it doesn't work. So here we can see allow lists, a large list of legitimate enterprise or business applications. And yeah, that's great. So if we actually go to the good old Adobe Acrobat 2005 type spoofing and we double click the legitimate Acrobat, we'll get it open obviously. And if you do Adobe Acrobat here, you can see that it's denied because it doesn't match that application signature. A core tenet of zero trust is enabling your users to use legitimate applications while deflecting or denying all of the fluff and junk that may come in through the user's inbox. Fluff and junk. A common belief in zero trust is that identity is key. As long as you authorize and authenticate your users, you can prevent initial access, spoofing of identities, and many more. Now, this is a fair point. It's certainly an aspect, but you also have to think about application security context. So say your user's identity gets compromised, and all of a sudden you have applications spawning, I don't know, PowerShell in the background. Well, that's an issue. And this is where contextualization of both your user's identity and the applications that are needed, they're important. And so ringfencing was actually a concept introduced by ThreatLocker, which introduces the whole idea of implementing application and identity contextualization and control. When an application is ring-fenced, it does as it's intended to do, but it's not allowed to interface or call other applications. So oftentimes you may see a conhost.exe behind process injection, a hidden terminal screen. As you can see in this policy, PowerShell is ring-fenced here for all workstations. What this allows us to do is, of course, launch PowerShell as it's intended to do, and, whatever it works. Using our running example of Adobe Acrobat spoofing, I have created a MSHDA Microsoft HTML application. And if we were to double click this in a legitimate use, it, should work, right? You double click it, what? This screen comes up. Oh my goodness. And right now what I have this is a reverse shell into my Kali Linux machine. So what we can do with a ring fencing type policy, as I was showing before, is basically allows us to limit the calling or interfacing of that. So let me go ahead and enable that. I can just go down to here, put this into secure mode, deploy the policy. And as you can see, it is not working. Well, that's because it's ring-fenced. So ring-fencing is kind of a novel concept, and it's really cool because it basically separates or decouples your applications. Zero Trust marketing also embraces the whole idea of never trust, always verify model. This actually sounds really good in theory, but at scale, it can be very difficult to do, as you are going to encounter friction with, the whole idea of enablement and then security. So sometimes, of course, you need to give your users local administration rights to installing something like Python libraries or using the QuickBooks application to modify system files.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Really, this is where a core concept of permeating or giving elevation control to users, but within a limited scope comes in. Where legitimate local administrative privileges are needed, you can grant. So QuickBooks to modify system files, or PuTTY. Your application or user needs this application in local administrative privileges, you can granularly grant them. Now, again, from an implementation perspective, you want to have some sort of elevation control, and you can actually separate or decouple local administrative uses. So here I have good old PuTTY, QuickBooks too, but you can do a double clicking and you can see that this has been denied because, well, maybe we don't want SSH access to this user. So here I can request access and say I need PuTTY, and let's just say I send this request. I need it for whatever, maybe some infrastructure management. Going into my response here I get a new event in my response center, and as you can see, I attempted to use PuTTY. What I can do is do elevate, and I can set it for a certain period of time, so that allows you to control. Maybe it's just a one-off use case. It's nice to have. So again, it's that decoupling of elevation privileges. Let's just say I approve this. I actually need to put in my application, and I finally get access a few minutes later. So Zero Trust really is about empowering legitimate use cases and also, well, restricting those legitimate use cases as well. Finally, a lot of Zero Trust discussion focuses on replacing outdated perimeter defenses, so think your VPNs and firewalls. While this is very important, Zero Trust isn't about networking. It isn't about, this whole idea of all networking. Really, it's a fine balance between identity, contextualization, device trust, application control, elevation, and many more. Whoa there. That's a lot of buzzwords to be saying in one sentence. Buzzword alert. Oof. So one major blind spot in the world of Zero Trust is what happens when an attacker bypasses your defenses. If a seemingly malicious application manages to execute on your host, you just don't want to block it, you also want to understand it. That's where something like a real-time malware analysis sandboxing can come in. So instead of just blindly trusting this solution here, or if you have a team of SOC analysts and you're looking to see what kind of threats are coming in, well, this is where those sandboxes can come in. So if we go to our, let's just say, for example, we were trying to execute a malicious PuTTY application, or we have also our malicious Adobe Acrobat installer. What we can do is go to our response center, and I can run this file in a testing environment. Now, as a SOC analyst, I could investigate this and say, is this something that appears to be legitimate or not? Well, you have various different cool tools that ThreatLocker will provide for you. Again, this is just a nice little feature to have for your SOC environment if you're trying to understand the types of threats that are coming into your environment. So this is kind of a fun little tenet of Zero Trust. It's not all about networking. It's also about understanding your applications and really empowering your users. These are 4 myths that I attempted to debunk with the underlying concepts. Like I said, Zero Trust, lots of marketing, lots of buzzwords. Hopefully you've perhaps learned something new about the core fundamentals or principles that surround Zero Trust. Again, it's an ever-evolving approach. It's not going to just be this fixed solution. It's always going to be evolving. Well, thanks for ThreatLocker for sponsoring this dedicated video, and until the next time, have a good day.